Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to a very special vlog here from our gorgeous rental villa here on the Solara. I'm here with Garry. We're going to be talking all things real estate, some questions that you have for Garry as well regarding owning property over here, whether it be condos, villas, townhomes. We're going to go through all of that, especially if you're watching from the UK. There's going to be some information for you that really might interest you. So we're going to head on inside in the cool because it's boiling out here.
It's pretty warm out here, isn't it?
It's just a little bit. What would you say, 35 degrees?
It's probably, I think it was 9 degrees as I was pulling up, so.
Yeah, very, very hot. So we're going to head on inside and we'll take a nice seat and we'll have a nice chat. So we're just sat inside now in our gorgeous rental villa. Do love it in here. Love the open space. We're going to do it in the nice living area. So Garry, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience over here in Orlando in terms of real estate, how you ended up here.
Sure.
Do you enjoy living here?
I do, first and foremost. I mean, I think, look, who doesn't want to live really in, I guess they can classify it the Sunshine State from that point, but there's so many things to do. So moving from the UK, I moved over here in 2000, so I've been here now 23 years, something like that. Accents change a little bit, unless my mother's in town, because she's only 4'7", but she still, scares the living daylights out of me. So it changes a little bit.
I can hear the mix in there. Yeah.
Well, that's from the wife. She's from South Carolina,
right?
So that was really the reason for moving across. Originally I was back in the UK, but my background was in golf, from an industrial side of things. So I played a little bit and went into the retail and then into the wholesale market. But and I did that when I moved over here to start with. It wasn't until 2003-04 when my wife and my sister collaborated against me, and we ultimately moved down from Atlanta down to Orlando, as they were actually involved in the development really of what we're kind of in today, the short-term rental properties, which was specifically aimed at really the Brits and the Irish, who were the predominant buyer at that point in time. So that was really my introduction to vacation rental, other than staying in them from that perspective when I used to come over and do what you're doing now. And I had the same smile on my face at the same time that you did. But really now I've been in the, I like to think of it more as a sort of the lifestyle asset or resort investment property. And predominantly to start with, it was really educating and being a resource for Brits that wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to come over for 2 to 4 weeks of the year, go to Disney, do Universal, SeaWorld, all the things that we like to do. And then at the same time, then they could rent their properties out. Now,
everyone's got that dream, haven't they? Including us, you've got that dream of having your holiday rental villa that you go and stay in, but then it's making you a bit of money while you're away.
Well, there's nothing better, is there, than going home and sitting in the pub and stuff with your friends and saying, I've got a place out in Florida. I'm just popping out there next week, chucking it down rain and stuff and whatever else, wherever it may be in the UK. And that's really what drove a lot of people to start with. So I've seen the business change. I've seen dreams change from that perspective. And what I mean by that is that in two senses. Some people just come over here and absolutely love it, and that's really what they want to do. And that has changed their lifestyle. The second thing comes down to actually I guess the financial aspect now, because when I first got into this business, a second home was a second home. It was like, been very fortunate. I've worked hard. Maybe I'm going to use some of my pension funds. We're going to look for a better lifestyle from that point. And now that the questions that we get asked all the time is, how much is that going to generate for me? All right. So it's now become an investment. Everybody's investors all of a sudden.
It's gone from second home might cost me a few grand a year, but I've got my own place, to now how many thousand am I going to get in the bank every month?
We've seen all this stuff grow up. We've seen loads of bits and pieces online, and we read stories all over the place.
TV shows as well. There's a couple of famous ones in the UK there on Channel 4, Channel 5 that sell the dream over here, and you're going to generate this much from this property, and
I mean, but bottom line, it's a fantastic place either to visit, to live. I mean, I like to do a lot of things outside. So obviously the weather is a huge benefactor. We get a lot of people obviously domestically and internationally visiting here. It's the most visited #1 city in the United States. So I mean, 74 million people visited Orlando last year. So that's more than the population of the UK.
Yeah.
And that's still slightly down. It's about 1 million people down from where it was in pre-pandemic 2019.
Jeez.
But it's significantly bounced back. So
yeah.
And I think one of the great things that I kind of think about, I was fortunate. I was actually born the year or the month before Walt Disney bought the 43 acres of land here in May 1965. So I personally feel, being at the end of April as well, the 29th, I kind of feel like I've got some sort of affiliation with it. And I just feel that, you know, what he brought is he wanted to change people's lives through experiences. And I think really what we're also seeing, you know, in like the house that we're sitting in now, is that these types of properties now are really creating experiences, and even more so from what we've just been through with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about creating experiences, lifelong memories. You know, these houses can accommodate a good number of people and multiple generations.
Yeah.
You know, we like everything like this now. None of us like to wait for anything. No. And we have a very short attention span, I think, nowadays, more so than probably I did when I was a kid. But you know, I'm the same now as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, we want constant entertainment around us all the time, I think. All the time.
Oh yeah, and what better place to do it? You know, you're in a place that we've got 7 of the world's top 10 theme parks in our backyard, and it's constantly evolving. And I know you guys have been over here. I mean, have you been on the new ride at SeaWorld? Have you done that this
Haven't
week?
done that one. We've done Tron at Magic Kingdom, and there's always something to come back for all the time.
And I think that's it's interesting because when I first moved over here as a Brit. You know, I didn't necessarily appreciate actually what Walt Disney World was. Yeah. And whether you're 2 or 80, there's something there that can create something for you, and looking forward to it. Yeah. And I do think that the vacation rental industry has really paid a close attention to what Disney has done, and Universal, of course. Yeah. And then now with these houses and the way that these resorts are set up, and we like to call them horizontal hotels, they are creating experiences. So if you do travel as a multi-generational family, there's something for the kids. Yeah. There's something for the adults. We can bring the grandparents with us as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to do here.
Even like the second living room upstairs. That was a massive,
It's fantastic. I mean, they've done a great job about bringing it outside experiences in. Yeah. So no longer is it just, let's build a house, and it's close to Disney, and you've got to go out for the experience. There's an inside experience that you can have, whether it's in the house and inside the resort, or at wherever you choose to go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's so many features of the homes where you're like, you don't need to actually go anywhere. You've got the games rooms, the kids' consoles, the pool, and then the resort area here is unbelievable. That community centre with the bar and grill. And
you've been on the Flow Rider?
Not yet.
No.
I've done it on a cruise ship before.
Where's it? Look, you got the shirt on and stuff. And we just need the Hawaiian shorts and stuff and whatever else.
I know. I am tempted. I've done it on a cruise ship before, but it does look good. You've got everything up there.
Yeah. No, they've really thought about it, and the beauty about what's happening and the way that this is evolving here in this market is that every new resort is trying to outdo the previous resort that's there. Yeah. So as an owner, as a guest, as a recurring guest, which is obviously something that we really truly value here in Orlando, and it's a 12-month destination. You can come at different times of the year. You can have different experiences. Disney had done a great job. I like to think about when I first moved over here, we used to be able to go to Pleasure Island. I don't know, you're probably a little bit young for that.
I remember as a kid. Okay. Yeah. I couldn't do anything in there, but I remember it,
right.
It's a proper party scene.
So, but you go to Pleasure Island, and obviously, you know, you've got sort of downtown Disney, and you'd walk through it, and at certain times of the year, it'll be really quite quiet. Yeah. You know, now you try and go. I went to Disney last night with my nephew for his son's 5th birthday. The place is packed on a Monday night. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like ridiculous. But what they have done is that, you know, they've extended Flower and Garden. They've extended Food and Wine Festival. Yeah. Now, there's a reason that they do that, okay? It's not just for our enjoyment. It makes financial sense as well. Yeah. But what it has done is it actually has elongated the season. And the reason they've done it is because they really couldn't cope with the amount of people that were coming in at just specific weeks or periods of time of the year. So unlike the Med, we are a 12-month destination, which I think is important for anybody that is considering the prospective purchase of a property. Because ultimately we know how seasonal rates can affect things. We don't really have that. There are a couple of, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of quieter periods which, you know, as a local I like.
And if I can, I like them. If you can come over in those quieter periods, it's
absolutely enjoy
slightly
it.
Quieter theme parks and things,
especially with the, you know, especially with the flight prices and stuff like that nowadays. But yeah, I mean, any time that you want to come here, it's great. You know, the weather is generally, obviously there's different peaks. We're now in hurricane season. I don't know if you want to mention that, but you know, that runs from June through November, but we've been very fortunate and blessed the last couple of years. And there's also a reason why Mr. Disney picked this. You know, we're on the crossroads of Florida. He did a lot of research. So we are about as inland as you could possibly be in terms of in Florida from that point. And we know obviously hurricanes work off of warm water. So there's a reason we do that. We're kind of under that protective Disney bubble.
Which is nice. I've got a couple of questions for you as well from the Facebook group where I did put a post up if anyone wants to ask Garry any questions. So I'll fire a couple of those out. Some of them are a bit longer, be a bit more of a discussion, but Rob has asked, how does the buying process compare to that in the UK regarding surveys, taxes, estate agent fees? When it comes to selling, what should an owner expect to pay in closing and in terms of realtor fees as a percentage value of the property?
Okay. Rob, well, if I can remember that's a long question, but...
Sorry, there's two questions
there.
It was started with how does the buying process compare with the UK?
In truth, it's actually pretty similar. I would say that there's a couple of significant differences in terms of having bought properties on both sides of the water. The first thing is in terms of the period of time, the transaction period, in terms of when you go to contract and when you close. It's a lot quicker here. I think the one thing to point out really is that, you know how you love chains in the UK? Typically, most properties generally are based on a residential nature, and we might be in a chain of 1, 2, 17 or whatever else. We don't have that here, generally speaking, for this style of property. Most of the properties that are in that we're in today, they are really used for the same operation. So there is no chain. All right. It's not conducive upon, I need to sell my house in New York in order that I can actually then move forward with this purchase. So that makes a significant difference. In terms of an actual transaction time, Rob, generally speaking, we can normally close or complete a property here. If you're purchasing cash, it can be 2 weeks. But generally speaking, we're looking about 30 to 35 days, something like that. And the reason for that is actually obviously what you spoke about a little bit earlier in terms of surveys and things like that. Typically, if you're looking at it from a mortgage perspective, that can expand to about 60 days currently. That's what they're working off of. And the biggest piece of that is obviously then dedicated down to how quickly that you actually provide the material that the lender's requiring, which actually is pretty straightforward. We're really a very investor or foreign national friendly state from that point. And they've made it a reason. Obviously tourism is huge here. But the biggest difference outside of that is that as opposed to having a lawyer and a lawyer, so you have a lawyer for the seller and a lawyer for the buyer, we actually have what's known as a title company here in Florida. And that's actually an entity that's been designed and authorized for real estate closings by the state of Florida. So they're licensed by the state of Florida. And they actually work on behalf of both the seller and the buyer in a neutral capacity. But they're also the ones that issue the title insurance on the property. Okay, so those are the guys that will do everything that a lawyer would do back in the UK. They run obviously all the admin. They run the county searches. They do all the escrows and things like that from that perspective. And until they've got all of that back, including obviously notification as an estoppel from the HOA to make sure that everything is clear, they won't actually issue that title insurance. So I think personally, it's actually a simpler system than it is in the UK. It's definitely quicker. And if you've got a great real estate agent who obviously is on top of it and they're used to working with those people, then ultimately it really should be a seamless experience.
Because they'll have done it time before, so they know the process in and out. And
Absolutely. And, the only difference really I would say is, wording on documents is that we both speak English.
Yeah.
But there are slight differences in terms of obviously the meanings of words. Right. So again, make sure that you're working with someone that, the way our team is set up is we have a great team in the fact that we actually allocate people from respective countries to help people that are looking and originating from those countries. So they have an understanding of what happens that way.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is to walk in and they haven't got a clue as to where you're from and what you're doing. So, but that's the way we set our business up.
So of course I will leave all of Garry's information and your company and everything down in the description if you do want to check them out. And
if another thing I might just add, Rob, if you'd like to, what we did do is we created a really comprehensive buying guide. So if you go to orlandobuyersguide.com,
right,
it actually talks you through this. We also actually, I want to know if I'm working with anybody from that point, what is it? What's the driving forces? Why are you looking at something like this? What do you want to achieve? Is it just I want to have a US based asset? Is it something I want to go and visit on a regular basis? Do I want to retire? So, you can check out orlandobuyersguide.com. It'll ask you to download it. There's a lot of comprehensive information in there. And there's a lot of information from not just people from myself on the real estate side, but with regards to taxes, with regards to property management, with regards to how do I set up a bank account?
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the questions we've got. How difficult is it to set up an American bank account?
Honestly, it's a piece of cake. It's got a little harder than it was if we go back sort of 4 or 5 years from that point. But we still have connections within banks that we work with and actually can actually be operated and set up remotely.
Right.
In most cases now, there never used to be a minimum balance that you had to hold. A lot of the banks now, with a lot of the new wire fraud rules and regulations that have come in, there is a minimum requirement that you have to hold in there on a constant basis. But providing that you do that, it really is a very straightforward process. And again, that's something that we can work with you to make that introduction. So we've got trusted and reliable people that we've worked with for many, many years that do this all day long. Yeah. So we all really are a cohesive unit to make sure that we protect people's money at every step of the way.
Nice, I like that. Let me just check some of the other questions. So, does an international owner have any capital gains relief? If so, how much? And if not, what is the tax rate regarding capital gains on a rental property?
Well, that's a great question. Firstly, let me just, being the fact we are in a country that loves to sue, I just want to make this absolutely clear. I'm not a licensed CPA.
Okay.
All right.
So this is just a general
just from a general perspective.
Info,
I can give you some information, but I would always encourage anybody to make sure if they are looking to do this, and this will be one of the steps that we would work through, is to make sure that you are actually introduced to a licensed CPA, not only to make sure that you're aware of it, but also to make sure that you're in compliance with everything that Uncle Sam wants you to be.
Yeah.
Okay, the last person you want to mess with is Uncle Sam here. Yep. And also in terms of how do you set up that property? How do you take title? Is it just in your personal name? Is it an LLC?
Yeah.
So those are all questions that, they probably ask you more questions than your doctor. But the good thing is they want to find out and they want to make sure that you're protected. But to kind of go back to a little bit of the questions that you have there, there's a couple of different ways in terms of what it is that you're trying to do with regards to capital gains. We do have a program over here called 1031, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's a program where you can actually defer your capital gain if you're actually looking to purchase another property. So one of the benefits of that is that we have, it's being used quite a lot at the present time. There's not a lot of properties that are necessarily being flipped, but people actually want to change their asset. And ultimately you can do that. Now there are time constraints on there, and I'll be glad to speak to anybody on that basis. But it does give you an option to defer any capital gain if you want to.
Right.
It's not applicable to every country, but the UK does qualify for that. In terms of just capital appreciation, if you're operating a property like this, for example, obviously we all hope that there's a lot of write-offs that we can make, and again that's where the CPA comes into it. But a sort of a bottom line range to work off of as to an answer to your question. If you make a capital gain of anything up to $49,000 on your property, then there's zero capital gains to be paid.
Right.
All right. Anything between 50,000 and 459,000, you're looking about 15%. Anything in addition to that, it then jumps to 20%.
Right.
All right. The one thing we would always encourage people is make sure that you're in real estate and you're in your asset, not for a flip. This is not a short-term game. This is something that should be mid-term or long-term ownership.
Yeah.
You know, the average ownership period for a Brit typically in the last few years that have sold has been anything from 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, when I first got in, it was a little shorter than that because people were changing and they were moving up and whatever else. But if that gives you an indication, definitely mid-term ownership period. But it can be anything from 0 to 20% typically.
Yeah. So if you had someone, say, interested in buying a rental property like this, and their first question would be, so how much do you think I'm going to make a year then? What would you say to that person? What would you say to that
Well, I think
buyer?
the first thing that I would say personally is let's look at the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have such a range of properties. We can sell everything here. We have 4 different property types in Orlando. We have condominium, which we think of as an apartment, okay, or a flat. We have a townhouse, which we think of as a terrace property. Now, these things aren't terraced homes, all right? I mean, most of these properties nowadays, I mean, there are some smaller ones at sort of 1,400 square feet, but like where we're sitting in Solara Resort, you know, they're 2,200 square feet and larger, all right? So it's like a full house with a pool, okay? We then have the detached property. So in the States, we call it a single family home. The emphasis is actually on family home. It shouldn't be on single, all right? So it is a detached villa style property.
You can get a lot more than one family in this.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Well, I'd hope so anyway. And we also have condo hotel. Now, there's a difference between condo hotel and condo. The main difference there is that it is actually operated as a hotel, but you can actually have a freehold ownership of one of the units within it.
Right.
Now, there are a lot more rules and regulations in terms of what you can do. So if you're looking to personalize it, that's probably not the best option for you. But if you're looking for a hospitality experience, amenities, service levels, and a higher occupancy level, then it might be something that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So there's different products, but we really have everything. I would say entry price point for a condo now in this market to be zoned as short-term rental will be something in the sort of the low $200,000 range, anything up to about 10 million.
Jeez. Yeah.
So quite a range. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, and I was so many. I love these. This villa in particular has been one of my favourites. I love the layout of this, and as you said, things have developed from the likes of Windsor Hills, some of those ones that were first in this area, to now they're completely changing. You also mentioned there's another one going up there that's catering for a slightly different market.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the nice things about my job, firstly, I get to, when I meet people, whether it's, online or face-to-face from that point, everybody's really excited. It's not like going to work, to be honest with you. I kind of figure myself as a problem solver. And one of the neat things that I've tried to do is become a real student of the vacation rental industry. If someone wants to buy a primary residential property and keep their kids in the same school district, I can recommend 22,000 other realtors in Central Florida that do that for you.
Yeah.
This market's very niche. So if anybody is looking, make sure that you work with someone that is what they do.
Yeah.
They're not distracted by outside agencies or anything. They're aware of what's happening in the vacation rental industry.
Yeah.
And to that point, what we've also seen, and one of the exciting things for me, is that everything changes here. Not only are we reliant upon the theme parks changing, but the vacation rental industry, first of all, it's obviously undergone a huge expansion, and especially in the last couple of years domestically, with people wanting to get in and having remote working options.
Yep.
But what we have seen here in Orlando is the advancement of product.
Yeah.
Prior to 2008, every builder that was in here, they may have purchased land in the Disney corridor, and it was zoned for short-term rental. They'd managed to get it in zone for short-term rental, but they were building residential floor plans.
Yeah.
So, if you mentioned Windsor Hills, for example, a lot of the product was in there was actually a little bit ahead of its time, in truth. There were 5 bed, 5 bath in there. There were 4 bed, 4 bath. Most of the time we never saw that. It was 5 bed, 2.5 bath. 3 bed, 2 bath, 4 bed, 2 bath. I encourage you to go out and look on any of these new communities to try and find me a 4-bed, 2.5-bath property.
Yeah.
It's not there. The developers in the vacation rental industry in Orlando were really looking at what was happening in the hotel market during that period of 08 to 12. The number of people that were coming into the market significantly increased, which meant that people were still actually utilizing income to come and visit Orlando.
Yeah.
And even though that the real estate market was very quiet. And then as soon as Champions Gate hit, where we all of a sudden we went in and as agents, we walked into 8-bed, 5.5-bath houses. We then saw other developers come in, and we then have, we have 5-bed, 5-bath, 6, 8, 10, 10. You've got 11 and 12 and 13 now available in Encore. Park Square now built a 15-bed house. Can you believe that?
What do they go for, just out of interest?
Well, most of them are certainly 1.2 plus, at least, from that point. But ultimately, what we've done is we've changed the layout as well.
Yeah.
We've got rid of that closed-in dining room, all right, which was never used. It used to amaze me, the best piece of equipment that we used to go in and when we were looking at resale properties in properties that were built from 01 to 08 was the dining table, because no one used it.
No.
All right? I mean, you yourself, I'm sure, how many times have you cooked in here?
Yeah. No.
We eat out, yeah?
Yeah.
So there's so many places to do that from that point. But I do think what's changed is that we've taken away a lot of the barriers. We've incorporated interior entertainment centers. So again, if you think of up here, you've now got 2 living areas, plus you've also got a pool area.
Yeah.
But everybody here, the kitchens are much larger. We've got larger amenities. In a lot of cases, you might actually have 2 refrigerators, 2 sets of appliances, because you're accommodating maybe 16 to 20, 24 guests. Everybody needs somewhere to sit.
Yeah.
All right. But what it is doing is it's bringing people together. And as a result for that, one of the things that has done significantly is the only people that used to use, I can't say only, I'm tarring everybody with the same brush here, but predominantly the people that use vacation rental homes prior to 2008 were international visitors that were coming in for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So Brits generally would come in for a fortnight, all right? Americans don't have that luxury. When I moved from the UK, I lost my 31 days holiday a year.
Yeah.
So most people generally start with 0, and you work your way up.
Yeah.
So we build days around weekends. So Memorial, Labor, Independence.
Yeah.
But what it is doing now is it's bringing families together, and people are starting to stay for a longer period of time as a result for that.
Yeah.
And I think that, one, we've got Airbnb, I think, to thank a little bit when they originated in 2008 to raise the awareness that this type of property was available to the domestic market. All right. One of the interesting things, Andrew, that I learned through COVID, when we had no international visitation into Orlando, there were still 137 million people visit Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've all driven from somewhere. And as a result for that, we knew at that point, Orlando can stand on its own, whether it's just a domestic destination or an international one. The benefit of the blend is that international visitors come for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
I hate to say, but they do spend more money. So make sure you negotiate with your property management company or your rental company. But at the same time, it's good to get a mix, because generally speaking, domestic citizens visit for 4 to 5 days a year. Or per visit, whereas from Europe it's normally 11 to 13. Asia it's a little longer, and we're now obviously starting. We're working very hard also to get a direct Asian flight. So we now have them coming in from.
Because you mentioned
Dubai.
the community popping up there that was catering. It's no alcohol on there.
No,
things
I mean
like that.
again, kind of going back to that flight from Dubai. The developers have been. We saw the advancement with Margaritaville.
Yeah.
So that was the first, what I would call a joint venture product. Every other product here has been where a developer has purchased a parcel of land, they've sold lots off to individuals, and they've built a brand around that. So like here for Solara, this is a Canadian developer that built this out. Champions Gate is Lennar, it's the US's largest developer. But Margaritaville was a little different in the fact that they actually brought a brand in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got 75 million people visiting Orlando, You've now got Jimmy Buffett and his crew, all right, his parrot heads. Yeah. You know, you've got 50 million plus loyal followers coming in. Well, you combine those two, you put a destination in Orlando, that's a recipe for success. Yeah. So we were paying attention to that. We've started, and I think that will be, you know, we'll start to see a few more of those. Everest Place, which is coming out, which is going to be a condo hotel development, but they're bringing in actually a combination of things that have never been seen in Orlando before. So they're bringing in actually a hotel company from Dubai, Sharjah Hotels. So they're actually bringing their MISC development into here. They're also actually recreating and bringing back Nickelodeon. All right. So if you think of Nickelodeon, it used to be sort of a very sort of low-end hotel. We used to have one in here on our drive. They're now very high-end. They've got a couple of developments, all-inclusive ones actually out in the Caribbean. Now the one in Orlando won't be all-inclusive, but it'll be in the same site. So you will have actually different amenities. You'll be able to curate your own vacation experience. And you know, MISC, for example, will have things that we've never seen here before. So you'll have a halal food and restaurant. You'll have it's a non-alcoholic community. All right. They'll have a ladies spa. Okay. So when you're off doing bits and pieces, you know where the missus will be. Yeah. So there's lots of different things. So I think one of the great things about what's happening in Orlando is people are starting to be really creative. We know it's a destination that attracts so many people, but there's also so many more that can come in here as a result from that. And everybody can actually have their own little piece of the pie.
Well, that'd be amazing. So they're talking about maybe a direct Dubai flight or Asia flight?
We have a direct Dubai flight already. I think it operates 4 days a week.
Right.
It runs out obviously of comes out of Terminal C, which is obviously the newly expanded terminal there. Sorry about the walkways. I know it's a long walk from some of those flights.
Some people have mentioned that.
I think we'll BA fly out of there from that point. But and Norse also. So that's another one that's obviously added on this year. So if you are coming to the UK, they fly out of Fort Lauderdale, but they also now run into Gatwick as well. So we now have Virgin, BA, Norse. So that's helping.
Yeah, you've got TUI now also doing the Orlando-Melbourne route.
Indeed, absolutely.
They're doing Manchester to...
And it's just down, it's only an hour.
It's not a far drive,
You know, TUI go into Melbourne from that point. So we're making it easier. Aircraft seats by all account are actually up, and speaking to the guys from Virgin. So more and more people are visiting, and it's just nice now to kind of get back and hear some of those international accents that are around. I mean, you know, you normally used to walk to Disney Springs in June, and it was like being in the middle of Glasgow. You know, but Canadian business is obviously still very strong from that point. South American business is very strong, but it's an exciting place to be, continually evolving. And 2025, we've obviously got the new Universal theme park that's coming out. This year we'll obviously see direct rail transportation as well to Miami, which. Hopefully everything goes through, and then by 2030 it'll also go to Tampa. We're just making it easier for people to get here, and more options. So, because it's a great base to be, even if you want to go and travel up I-95, go to Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston. It's a great drive, wonderful hospitality from that point. Jumping on a regional airplane here is just like jumping on a bus or a train at home.
Or we drive down to the Keys. We did that on last year on our trip down to Key West. Nice.
We'll take
totally
a cruise.
Different feel. Take a cruise from Port Canaveral or Fort Lauderdale or Miami. You've got so many different cruise ports now.
So we can have that multi-centered, we are really a multi-centered destination. But just bear in mind, again, it is a 12-month destination. So
and you can do your golf, your nature activities, your theme parks. There's so many. People always ask us, why do you always go back to Florida? It's because you've got so many different options.
Well, there's also a reason why I think 82% of Americans don't hold a passport. All right, so they can do everything. And even if you want to fly to Vegas or Hawaii or whatever else, you like the urban city centers and stuff as well. There's a lot to do. There's a couple of things about the Orlando airport that I like to think of. One is because of the amount of people that come in here, it's a great one-hop destination to pretty much wherever you want to go in the domestic US. The bad thing is there's never any upgrades on the way home.
No.
So everybody's here.
It is so many different options, so many different things to do. I'm going to go in with a couple of other questions. What range of properties can be bought and used? Condos and apartments, price ranges. We've pretty much gone through all of that, haven't we? Gary, we moved here a year ago from the UK. and closed on a new build house in St Cloud last September. We had a realtor who was amazing. Not sure if buying a holiday home is the same process. We touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, it pretty much is,
Yeah.
really. I mean, especially if you're coming in actually into the country. I mean, first of all, congratulations on a property in St Cloud. I moved to Lake Nona, so I'm kind of one of your neighbours a couple of years ago, and obviously that area is expanding. So, you know, when I first moved here, it used to just be cattle, which is pretty much what it was. But as you guys know, there's a reason why you've moved out there. It's a little closer to the beach, but there's a wealth of amenities, and there's also a wealth of transportation alternatives that are coming in there, really, if you look at the plans for the next 8 to 10 years. But in terms of transaction, it really is much the same.
Similar, yeah.
All you're doing really is you're eliminating the short-term rental aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, one point I'd like to make on that is if people are looking for a property that they're looking to kind of semi-retire or retire to, that's quite a big decision in the conversations that we have, because there are certain things, like for example here, a lot of these communities that are zoned for short-term rental, they're not zoned for residential use. Okay,
Right.
They have tried to keep the same type of people, because if you're moving into an area and you're looking to live there full time, you might not necessarily want that transient activity that's going on.
Yeah.
And that's also what we're seeing. It kind of brings you on to another point in terms of rules and regulations and licensing. You know, we saw a huge expanse and an increase of vacation rental ownership, certainly domestically through COVID. Now we're starting to see that retract a little bit, because people have been buying properties in locations that were never zoned for short-term rental.
Right.
All right, now local counties and local states and governments are starting to think, okay, do we really want this type of activity in here?
Yeah.
One of the benefits that you have really being in this, what we call a golden triangle, so to speak, we are set up for this.
Yeah.
This is what it's done. It's been licensed. The vast majority of properties that are within these, if you're working with a good vacation rental realtor or lifestyle asset coach, you really actually will gain and get that insight and that knowledge as to what ones qualify, what's incorporated into it, and what are the best options. But the decision as to what do I want to do, because for me it's the buying part's the easy part.
Yeah.
All right, is what do we want to do? What use is it? What's our objectives? What's our term length? Do we have an exit strategy? So those are all things to consider when you're going in, and be open and honest with them. You know, at the end, whoever it is that you're working with, because ultimately their knowledge and expertise can help you in the long run.
Because you mentioned on some of these resorts, you can't obviously say someone is retiring and they want to do 6 months here, 6 months in the UK. Some of them will not allow you to live in them for more than a certain period of time.
Yeah,
or...
so for example, I mean, you know, a lot of communities, certainly if you're looking into Osceola County and the northern part of Polk, which is really where we're in, a lot of the new communities that have come out, certainly from a new construction basis, you can't actually utilize it for more than 30 days.
Right.
All right, so just be very aware of that fact from that point. Again, you know, consult with a property expert in that market.
Is that 30 days within one visit, or is that 30 days over a whole year?
No, it's 30 days over a year. Okay. Wow. As you're probably aware, and I'm sure your viewers are aware, we still work off of, you know, you still have to have an ESTA to come into the US. Yeah. Okay, we've now dropped the COVID requirements, obviously, from that perspective, which I've had a bunch of phone calls in the last couple of weeks, people saying, oh, it'd be great to be back.
Yeah.
But ultimately, as a UK citizen, we take advantage, obviously, of the treaty with the US, whereby you can come in on an ESTA, which I believe, is it still 2 years? Is it a 2-year program?
2 years, I think.
So that allows you actually up to 90 days, all right, on any one visit. So 90 days typically.
90 days, and then obviously you'd have to bear in mind, wherever you're going to buy your property, you've got to be able to stay in it for 90 days. Some of them, like you say, only 30. What is it on here on the Solara? On here,
you've got that basis, so you can use it for up to that 6-month period.
Right.
So there's no limitation in terms of the 30-day usage here.
Yeah.
So the ones that come to mind, there's northern part of Champions Gate Resort. They incorporated that into it, but this actually sits in a slightly different county.
So I've got 2 final questions.
Sure.
It should be nice and easy for you.
Okay.
What's your favourite benefit of owning a villa over here? or a property or a condo? And then my second question will be, what do you find the most common slight downside to be, or the most common complaint that people have, or the most common difficulty that people have owning over here?
I guess the humorous answer would be one, actually just owning a property here.
Yeah.
The con of that is everybody comes up and says, you own a property in Florida, and you see so many visitors that come throughout the year. So everybody wants to come at the same time for a free holiday.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I think the thing that I enjoy being here is that there's a little bit more predictability in terms of weather and planning.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle is very different. Moving from the UK, I would say that, from a business perspective, is that it really does live kind of up to the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. And what I would say to you is that if you work hard here, you can be very successful.
Yeah.
And you can afford your family a very different lifestyle.
Right.
I would say the negatives, if you're living here full time, cost of health insurance is probably one that comes up from that perspective. But again, I when I moved to the States, I spent a lot of time over here before that working for an American golf company. And I got used to almost paying for that service, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of almost the way I view health insurance here, is that I am paying for a service, but ultimately I gain access to a different type of service from that point.
Yeah.
From a homeowner's perspective, the one biggest thing I would say to people is do your research first, educate yourselves, surround yourselves with people that have been in business for a good period of time. But also, once you've got that, commit.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me. The biggest piece of the puzzle, which we kind of touched on a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Property management.
Yeah.
All right.
Massive piece of the puzzle.
That is the biggest piece of the puzzle, and you have to identify and sit down with people and tell them really what it is that you're looking to achieve.
Yeah.
All right. Because there's so many variances that are here. I have guys that own property here, but they do everything. They want to be involved with it. They're semi-retired. They do the bookings. They like speaking to people. They come out for a good period of time. They update their properties on a regular basis. And I think that's one key thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
Is it's like any business, right? You only get out of it what you put in.
Yeah. You've got to keep investing, keep it looking fresh, keep it updated,
Absolutely.
keep it with the common trends.
And if you were to look around this property here, it's immaculate.
Yeah.
But it also sells itself online, all right? We shop with our eyes.
Yes.
From that point. And most of the time, so do everybody else when they're looking around and they're looking online.
Yeah.
So, on that side, you've got people that do everything, but you've also got some wonderful professional hospitality management companies now that have come into the market and for me, personally, have changed the market considerably. We've got over 2,500 different management companies in Central Florida.
Wow.
So not every one of them is as good as every one of them.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Do your research.
Definitely check reviews. Try and maybe speak to other homeowners that use that property rental company.
Absolutely.
If you can. Yeah.
And come out. If most people that I speak to, they're aware of Orlando. They've been here.
Yeah.
All right. If you are thinking about it, come out through a quieter period of time. You don't have to be here at peak season, unless obviously you are limited to school holidays and things like that. But take your time out. This is a business decision for most people.
Yeah.
All right. Especially if you're using it for 2 to 4 weeks of the year. It's quite different if you're using it for maybe 3, 4, 5 months of the year. And actually, what would attract you for 2 to 4 weeks might not attract you for a longer period of time. So do your research. Come out. Spend some time with people that will spend time with you. Do your research.
Yeah.
Do your research. Do your research.
And if anyone is, of course, interested, I'm going to leave all of your details down in the description
Fantastic.
box. They can reach you by email.
I've got a UK number. I mean, if you think about, I tried to work for an easy one.
Yeah.
Pretty bad though. But it's a Weybridge number. But 911, which is obviously we love to use over here.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't have 007. So 007's on the end of it. So, but
I will leave
Glad to
all
leave
of
the info.
Gary's details in if you do want to ask them any serious questions or inquire about selling or buying or...
Please do. We welcome everything from that point. So love to help.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
You're very welcome.
I'm sure a lot of people have enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
And hopefully I'll see you again when I'm back. We'll let me
Please
talk
do.
for another chat.
Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, it might be nice one day to see something that you've got for sale or something.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be glad
Maybe
to
on
take,
our next trip.
glad to take you around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Perfect.
then dinner's on you.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.